Have you ever noticed how many men struggle to say how they really feel? How many hold back their emotions, even when they're hurting? The truth is, most men have been trained to hide their emotions their entire lives. And not just by accident, by design. Society tells us that real men don't cry, don't show weakness, and definitely don't ask for help. But what if I told you that mindset is destroying lives? This isn't just a men's issue. This affects everyone: partners, families, friendships, entire communities. The cost of emotional suppression is real, and it's time we talked about it. So, why do so many men struggle to express their emotions? Is it biology, society, upbringing? And more importantly, how do we change it? In this video, we're breaking it all down. If you're a man who's ever felt the pressure to tough it out, or if you care about someone who does, keep watching. This is a conversation we all need to have. Let's start with the big one: society. From a young age, many boys are taught, sometimes explicitly, sometimes subtly, that certain emotions aren't manly. Think about phrases like "man up," "don't cry," or "be a tough guy." These aren't just throwaway lines. They're lessons. And they're lessons boys hear over and over, shaping how they see themselves and their emotions. But where do these ideas come from? They're rooted in historical roles. For centuries, men were seen as protectors and providers. Roles that emphasized strength and stoicism, crying or showing vulnerability. That could be seen as a sign of weakness, something that could undermine their ability to fulfill these roles. And here's the thing: these norms might have served a purpose in the past, but today, they can be incredibly limiting. They create an unwritten rulebook that tells men to suppress their feelings, even when those feelings are perfectly normal and healthy. The result? Many men grow up without the tools or the permission to express their emotions openly. But it doesn't have to be this way. Recognizing these societal pressures is the first step toward breaking free from them. Let's talk about masculinity. Now, masculinity itself isn't the problem. It's important to make that clear. There's nothing wrong with being strong, confident, or independent. But the issue is that the definition of masculinity has become so narrow. Men are often expected to be stoic, competitive, and dominant. And while those traits can have their place, they're not the whole picture. For example, imagine a man who feels anxious or overwhelmed. Instead of being able to say, "I'm struggling," he might feel pressured to push those feelings aside because society tells him that real men don't admit to vulnerability. This creates a kind of emotional bottleneck. The feelings don't go away. They just get buried. And when emotions are buried, they don't stay buried for long. They often come out in other ways: anger, frustration, or even physical symptoms like headaches or stress-related illnesses. In some cases, this emotional repression can lead to burnout, strained relationships, or serious mental health issues. So, how do we expand the definition of masculinity? It starts with acknowledging that being a man isn't just about being strong. It's also about being human. And part of being human is feeling a wide range of emotions. Now, let's talk about the connection between emotional expression and mental health. This is such an important topic because, frankly, the statistics are alarming. In many parts of the world, men are significantly more likely to die by suicide compared to women. They're also less likely to seek therapy or talk openly about their struggles. But why is this the case? A big part of it comes down to stigma. Many men feel like seeking help, or even admitting that they need help, is a sign of weakness. They worry about being judged, whether by their friends, family, or society at large. And this fear can keep them silent even when they're hurting the most. This silence can be incredibly isolating. It's like carrying a heavy backpack full of emotions you're not allowed to unpack. Over time, that weight can take a toll, not just emotionally, but physically too. Studies have shown that suppressing emotions can lead to higher stress levels, weaker immune function, and even chronic health issues. But here's the good news: it's never too late to start unpacking that backpack. Whether it's through therapy, talking to a trusted friend, or even journaling, there are so many ways to process and express your emotions. And every small step toward vulnerability is a step toward better mental health. Now let's get a little scientific for a moment. Did you know that men and women experience emotions just as deeply, but they might process them differently? It's true. For example, some studies suggest that men might find it harder to articulate their emotions due to differences in brain structure and social conditioning. One key area of the brain involved in emotions is the amygdala, which processes emotional reactions. Another area, the prefrontal cortex, helps regulate and express those emotions. While these brain structures work similarly in men and women, societal norms can influence how they're used. Men are often encouraged to rely more on logic and problem solving, which can make it harder for them to tap into their emotional vocabulary. So, if a man in your life seems distant or struggles to open up, it's not necessarily because he doesn't care. It might just be that he's not used to putting his feelings into words, or even identifying what those feelings are in the first place. Relationships play a huge role in how men experience and express emotions. Romantic partners, friends, and family often want men to open up more, but for someone who's been conditioned to keep their emotions hidden, that can feel incredibly vulnerable. If you're in a relationship with someone who struggles to express their emotions, remember that patience is key. Don't push them to open up all at once. That can feel overwhelming. Instead, focus on creating a safe, supportive environment where they know it's okay to be themselves. And for the men watching, know that opening up doesn't mean you're burdening someone else. In fact, sharing your feelings can bring you closer to the people you care about. It's a way of building trust and connection, which are so important in any relationship. So, how do we change this deeply ingrained narrative? How do we create a culture where men feel comfortable expressing their emotions without fear of judgment or ridicule? The good news is, change doesn't happen all at once. It happens step by step, conversation by conversation. And we all have a role to play in that change. Here are some practical ways we can start shifting the way men relate to their emotions, one step at a time. It all starts with awareness. We need to recognize the subtle and not so subtle ways we reinforce the idea that men should be tough, emotionless, or always in control. These stereotypes start early, often in childhood, with simple phrases like, "boys don't cry," or "toughen up." Even movies, TV shows, and social media play a huge role in shaping how men see themselves. The problem is, when we constantly associate masculinity with emotional suppression, we're teaching boys that they have to shut down parts of themselves to be accepted. And that's not just unfair, it's harmful. So, what can we do? We can start by being more conscious of the language we use. Instead of saying, "man up," try saying, "it's okay to feel this way." Instead of dismissing emotions as dramatic or weak, we can validate them. These small shifts can make a massive difference in changing how men, especially young boys, see themselves. One of the biggest misconceptions out there is that vulnerability makes you weak. But think about it, doesn't it actually take more courage to open up than to bottle everything up? Vulnerability is how we connect with others. It's how we build strong relationships, whether with friends, family, or romantic partners. And yet, so many men have been taught to see vulnerability as something to be avoided at all costs. That has to change. Most of us are never actually taught how to deal with emotions. Think about it. Schools teach math, science, and history, but rarely do we get lessons on how to process sadness, frustration, or anxiety. And for many men, emotional intelligence wasn't modeled for them at home either. The truth is, emotional intelligence isn't something you're born with. It's something you learn. That means we need to actively teach boys and men how to identify, understand, and express their emotions in a healthy way. This can start at home, in schools, and in social settings. Simple things like encouraging boys to talk about their feelings, teaching mindfulness practices, and modeling healthy emotional expression can go a long way. It's about giving men the tools they need to understand themselves better. For too long, therapy has been seen as something only for people who are broken or weak. But let's get one thing straight. Therapy isn't about being broken. It's about growth. It's about learning more about yourself and developing the skills to navigate life in a healthier way. Yet so many men hesitate to seek therapy because they worry about what others will think. They might feel embarrassed or believe they should just deal with it on their own. That mindset can be incredibly damaging, leading to years of silent struggle. But here's the thing. Mental health is just like physical health. If you had a broken arm, you wouldn't try to tough it out. You'd go to a doctor. The same logic applies to mental well-being. Seeing a therapist isn't a sign of failure. It's an act of self-care. And the more we talk about it openly, the more we can break down the stigma surrounding it. So if you have male friends, check in on them. Don't just ask, "How are you?" Ask, "How are you really?" Create spaces where honesty is welcomed. And if you're someone who struggles to open up, consider finding a support group, a close friend, or even a mentor who can help you feel more comfortable expressing yourself. At the end of the day, we're all in this together. The more we support one another, the more we can create a world where emotional expression isn't just accepted, it's encouraged. This isn't just about making life easier for men. It's about making life better for everyone. When men are free to express their emotions, relationships improve, families grow stronger, and society as a whole becomes more compassionate. It's a win-win for everyone. So, what are your thoughts? Have you experienced this struggle yourself, or seen it in others? Let's keep this conversation going in the comments. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.